Hello and welcome to the Clock and Talk, an Arsenal podcast, and we're covering, for fuck's sake.
Good job me and Schwinn are a lot more prepared than you, because if we came on and went, we didn't watch the game either, we was on the piss, it'd be a pretty shit podcast.
Well, Mesut Ozil is the best number 10 in the Premier League.
Yeah, that all looks good on paper, but there's never been a football match played on paper, so it's not really worth much.
I'm going to make a bold prediction that Jack Wilshere will sign for West Ham United.
It's time to start watching football with your eyes. I think people listen to what the commentators saying and have that as their own opinion, but if you watch what's going on, you'll see things a lot clearer.
Schwinn, who do you think is going to win the Golden Boot?
I think Alexis Sanchez might do a number on that this year.
Okay. Tony talks about a clock being right twice a day. Tez is right every day. 5 from 5, lads. Fucking beauty. Hello and welcome to the Clock and Talk. Thank you for listening. Thank you for downloading, and follow us at clockand_talk on Twitter. I'm your host, Tez, and each and every week I'm joined by Tony and Schwinn. How are we, Tony?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. Well, the football weren't great, and I was very hungover Saturday night, but apart from that, yeah, I'm alright.
Good as can be. Schwinn, how are you, buddy?
Doing just about the same. Surviving one day at a time, and it's not made easy by the fact when we put in performances like we did yesterday. So let's get into it.
And before we do get into it, I've just got a bit of house cleaning to get through, Schwinn. YouTube, our subscribers there, we've still got that competition going. We are 74, I think you said, Tony?
Yeah, 74 short.
74 short. So as soon as we hit that 500 mark in the subscribers on YouTube, and I believe you've retweeted out as well, Schwinn, so hit the, what am I saying? Yeah, Urban Arsenal. We've got a Arsenal shirt to give away when we hit 500 subscribers on YouTube. Also, I just have a quick shout out to Lee Beat and his family, who are listeners of the podcast, and thank you guys for your support. And congratulations to Lee, who's going to be a father soon. Anyway, that's a little bit of house cleaning, boys. Tony, 30 seconds, mate. Arsenal v Sporting.
Shit game, terrible game, marred by what looked like a very bad injury to Danny Welbeck. I'm sure we've all seen the pictures. I know they were retweeted 4 billion times. It seems like the injury's nowhere near as bad as it looks. Apparently it's a clean break, which is probably the best we could have hoped for in that situation, and if it is a clean break, it could only be a couple of months out, which from what it looked like will be a bit of luck for both Arsenal and Danny. So get well soon, Danny. There's literally no point talking about the game. 0-0, nothing happened. They got a guy sent off in 89th minute. Yeah, shit, like just nothing.
I'm just going to add though, they're a fucking grubby bunch of bloke team, aren't they? Like, fuck me. Yeah, I mean,
they knew a draw pretty much got them through as well. So we're definitely through now, and a draw it all but guarantees it, because we've got to play the other two sides. So they were coming just to break up the game and do whatever they had to do, and they did.
On Welbeck though, so how long are you thinking he'll be out for?
No idea. If it is true that it's just a clean break, which, as I said, it didn't look like it, but that's all the reports coming out. They've been coming out since Friday, and Emery said after the game yesterday that it looks like he'll be back with us a lot sooner than thought. A clean break is probably only two months.
Because I was looking at, there might be a couple of questions on Twitter on it, and I was also looking at the news earlier, and there was talk about should we replace Welbeck in January. Now,
well, I mean, the issue is the reports he's not going to be offered a new contract, so he's going to be out of contract anyway. So he'll be leaving on a free in the summer, if reports are to be believed. And it looked like initially that he would never play for us again, because it looked like that injury was at least a 9-monther. But as I said, if the reports are true that it's a clean break, he'll be back in January, February, and maybe it gives him a chance to earn a new contract. Or if they were planning to give him one, a 2-month injury won't put him off that. So I think we'll hold fire on whether he needs to replace him or not until we find out the extent of the injury.
Okay, well, we wish him all the best on a hopefully returns in the 2 to 3 months that you say. Okay, let's get into this game. Arsenal v Wolverhampton Wanderers. Your line-up Tony, that shocked you, surprised any there?
No, I think, to be honest, it's probably pretty much what I would have done or what I expected. Everyone knows I don't really like Iwobi on the right, but as soon as you're starting Aubameyang on the left, it leaves it between Mickey and Iwobi. And I think it's fair to say Iwobi has been performing better. So no surprises. I wonder if there was a temptation to bring Socrates back in. But obviously he felt Holden and Mustafi had done well together, so he kept them in. So that was probably the lineup I expected, to be honest.
And Schwinn, what about yourself, mate?
Yeah, I mean, Iwobi has been performing much better than Mkhitaryan as a whole throughout this season, but we know that on the right, he's a shadow of himself. And yesterday, in the first half particularly, he was, maybe our brightest spark, but that's not saying a whole lot because we were very poor on the whole. I do want to give him some benefit of the doubt here, but he just doesn't seem to work on the right, and I don't want to see him on the right ever again. I think it takes away a lot of the balance. The creativity also isn't quite up to the mark, and I'd probably take a chance with Mkhitaryan up there at some point and give him a few games in there just to see if he picks up some confidence by playing games back to back. We'll probably talk about the defense a bit. I thought Holding didn't quite have a great game. He got turned a couple of times. And with Socrates on the bench, I just couldn't fathom why that was the decision made. I understand the partnership has done well so far, but when you have Socrates back and he's played a couple of games, you would imagine he would be the obvious choice. And no Nacho Monreal is still in the squad, which is a bit of a worry. We'll obviously talk about Kolasinac, but not to have Monreal even back yet as a part of the match day squad is a bit worrying. So those were the things that stood out to me, at least.
I can sit here and go through this game, boys, but it's going to be a little bit boring. It was a little bit disappointing as well. Look, I tweeted out prior to the match. I said, I think I tweeted Craig's article with a preview, and I was concerned when I said in my tweet this game was always going to be a bit of concern for me. So I can go through this match and we can break it all down, or I can just pass the microphone straight over to Schwinn and let him have his 5-minute rant, and then we can have a bit of a discussion about that. How about that one, Schwinn?
Yeah, sure. I mean, look, anyone who listens to the show regularly will know we've been very positive throughout the season, but we have also not held back in voicing some of the concerns. Anyone who's watched us play this season knows that we've gotten away a lot of times. And for all the talk about XG and some of the advanced stats, people who do like or have an understanding of how those equations are put together have been shouting that at some point we will regress to the mean in terms of our productivity, in terms of our output. And that's exactly what happened yesterday. Apart from all the statistical input, anyone who watched the game will be able to tell you that it was a slow start, lots of sideways passing, no incision, and all in all, till the time we conceded the first goal, which is in the 16th minute mark, we didn't threaten even once. We controlled the majority of the game, but with little to show for it. Lots of quantitative possession, but very little qualitatively. Very passive in large spells of the game, and honestly just lacked creativity and ideas. Aubameyang was anonymous. Lacazette the same. Bellerin fluffed his lines in key moments. As I said, Iwobi on the right is just madness for me. Kolasinac just does inexplicable things. I mean, people might call this a lucky result as the way things panned out, and I would probably agree over the 90 minutes, but we were dog shit. This level of performance is unacceptable and inexcusable. And a bit of the responsibility here has to rest on Emery. Let's be honest, he got this wrong. His tactical changes were not quite as effective. I like Guendouzi coming on because I think it provided us more control in midfield and maybe more importantly provided some cover for our fullbacks on either side, because then we had Torreira and Guendouzi splitting on either side of Xhaka. But there was no countermeasure for the width that Wolves were going to threaten with. And at halftime, Emery seemingly did nothing to tailor our front three either. It seemed very stale. and it's one to forget, if you had to ask me.
Okay, Tony, let's get your rundown on the match, mate. You're at the ground.
Yeah, I mean, the first thing that always comes to mind is I don't think we've ever not struggled against a team playing 5 at the back and using real width. Under the Wenger era, we always struggled until we changed to 5 at the back, and we kind of matched them up and we done okay for a period. But whenever we play a 4 at the back, we've always struggled against 5 at the back. And I was looking forward to see how Emery counteracted it, because I was looking to see something different. As I said, we all know he's very good tactically, so I wanted to see what he'd done about it. And the answer on the day was absolutely nothing. He let them run wild. Their wing-back tucked in, their winger stayed wide. Helder Costa had the freedom of the Emirates, it seemed, in the first half especially. He literally just... It's the first time, I think, he's just thought... Well, it seems like he's thought, we'll just play our game, and if we're good enough, we'll win, which is what Wenger was known for. He didn't really care who we were playing. It was, if we play well enough, we'll win. And Emery's not been like that so far, but yesterday that's completely what it looked like. Obviously failed. I disagreed with the sub at half-time, to be honest. Nothing against Guendouzi, but Iwobi was the only one that was actually trying anything. I understand why he came off. If they're going to take one of the wide men off and they wanted to keep Aubameyang on the pitch, unfortunately Iwobi was the fall guy. But it seemed like we were weak down the wings, so he just completely disregarded them and thought, okay, we'll attack centrally. So he took off basically both wingers because he moved Aubameyang infield and took Iwobi off for a centre midfielder. So it just made us even easier to defend against. Because in the first half we were trying to go wide, we just wasn't a threat. In the second half we couldn't even try because we had no width at all. There was just so many decisions that were inexplicable. Even, again, I thought Guendouzi was okay when he came on, but we're clearly chasing a game. They had 5 at the back with at least 1, if not 2, holding midfielders. So the box was packed whenever we got in there, and most of our shots were blocked because there were so many bodies in there. So even bringing on Guendouzi and not Ramsey, when you think you need a goal, they're overloading the box. They've got too many people, and we've got 3 midfielders, none of whom are ever going to get in the box. So then you're basically saying to Aubameyang and Lacazette, you're playing against 6 players, good luck. And we didn't really create anything. We had a couple of half chances. Hector probably should have scored. Aubameyang definitely should have scored. This is in the second half. I think we probably created better moments in the first half. And I just think tactically and personnel-wise in terms of changes, Emery got it all wrong. And I think that's probably the first time I've said that he's got it all wrong completely.
It's hard to disagree with you, boys. Listen, I'm going to try and find a positive, but I'm not really going to find one because it was as Schwinn said, a dog shit of a game. Look, I have to give credit to Wolverhampton though, and I have to give credit to their manager because he came with a plan. And one thing I did notice is, and it's a worry going forward, is Arsenal do struggle when they're being pressed like they were, and with the 5 at the back. We just look very poor in creativity. Now, Aubameyang and Lacazette, and I'm glad you said it, Schwinn, that Aubameyang and Lacazette, because they were very poor yesterday. Iwobi, I agree, he tried chances. I don't want to sit here and echo your thoughts, boys, but it's type of fucking hard not to. I will mention that I noticed a few Arsenal fans and whatnot, as soon as we have a bad game, Granite's the boo boy once again, and I did see that a lot of people were saying, oh, Granite had a shit game and this and that. However, I think everybody had a shit game apart from Leno. I don't know if there was one, probably as you said, Iwobi was possibly the only one doing something. For me, Granite was trying something late in the second half, which was obviously too late. I don't know. It's just one. It's a really fucking hard game to talk about, boys. If you lads got anything else to add on it, I don't know where you want to go.
What's annoying is you said he's come with a plan, and he has, but they do that every week. That's how they play, and they are a hard side to beat. I think it was a podcast you missed out on where me and Schwinn looked at it was the last international break, and we looked at all of the games up until this international break, and I said then a month ago that this would be a hard game because they packed the defence, they were very quick on the break, and it was like Arsenal was surprised by that. And again, I'm not saying I'm some form of genius that knows everything about football, but anyone that watches anything knows how Wolves play and knows that they're quite good at it. So how Arsenal weren't prepared for that is beyond me.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. But what's the problem going forward though, Tony? Like, because we got Bournemouth after the international break, is that right?
Yeah.
So what I'm getting at is what if Eddie Howe goes, well, fuck, that's how you you play against Arsenal. Like, what's the plan going forward for Emery now?
Well, I mean, it's difficult because everyone has their own system, and you can't just implement the system of another team as well as them, because Wolves have been doing that for a year and a half now, and they've got the players. They buy players to fit in that system. So they have a back five, the midfield, the three centre backs, all massive. Then they've got two brilliant passers of the ball in the middle, a hold-up man, and two very quick wingers. And that's they've built their team around that system. So it's not like another team can go, oh, that's what you do, and they'll just fit into that system. But we do need to find a way to play against five at the back. Luckily, I mean, if this would have been 3 years ago, we'd have been in trouble because Chelsea won the league playing five at the back, and everyone wanted to try it. That was the fad at that time. It seems to have gone already. So you don't see it too often. There's not many times we're going to have to play at five at the back. Off the top of my head, I can't think of anyone else that plays regularly at five at the back. Fulham changed against us and tried to, but they didn't know how to play it, which is the point I'm making. They may have looked at Arsenal and realised, they're not the greatest against five at the back, and they tried to play it, but they didn't know what they were doing because that's not the system they've been drilled into.
Yeah.
But I can't think of anyone else. So hopefully it's a problem that we don't have to overcome too often. And when teams do it, hopefully they're not as good at it as Wolves are because it's not normal to them, and they make the same mistakes Fulham did.
Does anyone come to mind, and I know I'm putting you on the spot, in Europa League? Because that'd be maybe where I could think of, going into Europa League. No,
as I said, it's just one of them fads that seems to have gone. Usually, like when you get five at the back in amongst the better teams, well, you don't get it amongst the better teams, sorry, you get it amongst the worst off teams who are literally just using it as a defensive mechanism, try and get as many people behind the ball as possible. Wolves are not really like that. Yeah, they get a lot of defensive numbers, but then they use their pace and their hold-up men very well. And then they've got come off the bench. They've got the players to play that and to change that as well. So it was like Helder Costa, who I thought had a very good game, came off, and then Adama Traore came on, who is a natural replacement. So you can see they're built into that model, whereas not every other team is. I can't think of any team that you'd say is a threat in, say, the Europa League or whatnot that play a five at the back.
Okay. Schwinn, you touched on Bellerin. People said that he didn't have too bad a bad game. What was your take on Bellerin and Mustafi?
I'll tackle Mustafi first because I thought, in terms of the centre backs, I thought he was more comfortable. I thought he looked better defensively. Of course, the way the game panned out, every time Helder Costa got on the ball, Holding found himself isolated. And as Tony said, Helder Costa had so much time and space that with his pace, he was going to pose trouble for Holding. So maybe it's a bit harsh to say that Holding had the worst game, but in the duels that happened, Holding definitely came off worse. Where Mustafi really troubled me was with his passing. There was a time in the second half where we were trying to ping in balls behind their back line, and none of them came off, except the one where Hector Bellerin just found himself in a lot of space because I think it was Willy Bolly who just misjudged the flight of the ball and couldn't quite get his head on it. And Bellerin latched onto the ball and tried to find Aubameyang, who was making a very good run near post. But the cross just ended up into the side netting, and you could tell that Bellerin was frustrated with himself. But on the whole, I thought Bellerin had a very poor game. I don't understand why he tends to go square and reverse so much. He has so much pace. And yesterday, he even had Iwobi in front of him. So he had the option of playing the ball around the corner and making runs. We seriously lacked runners from deep yesterday. That's why when Ramsey came on, things started to look a bit better. The goal came off a Ramsey late run that eventually obviously led to a corner from which Mkhitaryan swerved in a ball, and that just eluded everyone, thankfully. But when you have a compact defense, the way Wolves were, narrow, compact, they were also very much deep. So you need runners to jig their system about, and that was non-existent yesterday. Mesut Ozil likes to be on the ball. Alex Iwobi gets attracted towards the ball. Obviously, Lucas Torreira and Granit Xhaka are not going to make those runs, and that's where you expect Lacazette and Aubameyang to really click and sort of be on that telepathic level. We talk about the partnership they've formed, but on the field, we've really not seen anything special from them so far. And yesterday, they were not on it at all. Forget the partnership angle, but even in terms of individual quality, they just lacked it. And Aubameyang was obviously very unlucky in not finishing that chance. But
it's not unlucky.
I was going to go into that a little bit with Tony, because you get the frustration, Tony, that Schwinn's sitting on the bench. He started with Bella and Mustafi, and then he's flip-flopped around with Lacazette and Aubameyang. Tell us what's wrong with him, Schwinn. Have a go, mate.
I'm telling you, they're not running. They're not taking initiative. That's what it.
Okay, what do we do to fix it? How do we fix this shit?
You need more energy in the team. You need people to take risks, and that's what we lacked yesterday. It's as simple as that.
Tony,
it was sorry, just quickly. It was shades of what we saw under Arsene Wenger. They give Mesut Ozil or Alexis Sanchez, who obviously wasn't on the pitch yesterday, but give one of them the ball and let them do something.
Yeah, mate, I'm getting no arguments out of you, but I just feel you're holding back a little bit. Let it rip, son. Let it rip. Okay, Tony. Aubameyang, Lacazette, mate. Let us know. Tell us.
Well, they're just like Aubameyang couldn't run in behind, so then you've got to rely on him poach it. Especially, forget him on the left, because there's just no point going over it. He can't play there. We've said it every week. I don't care how many he scores playing from the left. I'm a huge Aubameyang fan. Everyone knows, but he can't play from the left. I've moaned about it every week. So let's move on from that. Second half, they're defending deep, so he can't use his pace in behind. So you've got to get the ball in the box as often as possible, and we just didn't do that. As Schwinn said, we moved the ball way too slow. We didn't take any risks. They've got so many people behind the ball, you kind of have to take risks. But we didn't. We was safe. We had 76% possession, I think, but we didn't create a thing. Then he gets his one chance, and Schwinn said it's unlucky. It's not. It's shit. You've got to score from there.
You should have scored it, though.
Not even should have. You have to.
You have to, yeah.
I don't really want to hammer him, because he usually is so clinical from there. But you should be. That's his job.
Mm.
The same. I've seen people say, "Oh, Lacazette was unlucky in the first half." No, he wasn't. He should have hit it first time, and it would have gone in. And then why he's taken the touch, I don't know, because he's taken it into traffic. And then even when it's hard then after he's taken the touch. There's 3 people in front of him. But he's just smashed it as hard as he can and straight. If you've taken that touch, you've got to have the composure to try and pick a spot. And then if someone saves it, you go, fair enough. But you can't just lash at the ball. Or if you're going to lash at the ball, do it first time. Both of them were just shit yesterday, but we didn't help them either. I'm not. You could dig out every single player pretty much. But when you struggle to score goals and finish chances, you always look at the strikers. So them two were poor. Hector just, I'm not sure what he does anymore. I really don't have a clue. And
I thought he wasn't too bad though.
He doesn't defend.
He wasn't great. But
ever.
Yeah.
He never defends. I know it's not his fault, but the left winger has scored their goal. The right back is 20 yards away. That's always going to be a problem. I know there's a turnover, but watch their goal again. All right, Xhaka's lost the ball. There's so many mistakes in that goal. Yeah. First off, Kolasinac shouldn't give Xhaka the ball. It's a bad pass from Kolasinac.
Can I say something before you go on, Tony? I mean, I've seen people give Granit a lot of hate for that, but on initial viewing, I actually thought that ball was mishit by Kolasinac. I think he's actually trying to find Mustafi there. I mean, it's a theory. There's obviously no proof to this. But the way he shapes up his body and tries to swing at the ball, I actually think he was actually trying to find Mustafi. Because in the run-up to that pass, Granit Xhaka actually looks over his left shoulder and he sees where Mustafi is.
It wasn't Granit's fault.
I mean, look, we can talk about whether he should leave the ball or not. We can talk about whether he should have the awareness. But I think the way he shapes up, look, football is very physiologically telepathic that way. You see how your teammate is shaping up to play a pass, right? And we've seen a lot of times midfielders in that position will open their legs because they know the ball has a lot more pace on it. And maybe that's what Granit was expecting, because he was so close to Kolasinac that he probably knew that this ball is not meant for me. But it was just not hit with enough pace that it reached Mustafi ever. What do you guys make of that?
Well, just going through the goal as a whole, as I said, first, whether it was meant for him or not, it's a horrendous ball to play. His body shape can only take, once Xhaka gets it, can only take him back into traffic of people that are quicker than him. So it's a terrible ball. I actually agree with you. I think it was a poorly hit ball to Mustafi. But having said that, Granit cannot leave that ball. As you said, he had a look around. So he knew that Mustafi was never going to get that ball. So, I always say, there's so many mistakes that usually go into a goal unless it's one huge mistake. So it's a horrendous ball by Kolasinac. Not horrendous, it's a ball he shouldn't play. Granit has to be clever enough to even if he lumps the ball 70 yards, to know that he can't let a ball run there. You've got to be able to judge that weight of pass. Then after, watch, one thing I've not seen anyone criticise, at no point does Bellerin run. And Caballero comes in off the wing. Mustafi can't go with him because Helder Costa was on his own at the back post. Had Bellerin sprinted back and covered, Mustafi could have got over earlier and maybe would have got a clearance, maybe not. But he was caught in two minds because Hector didn't even try and run. As I said, I started this rant because it's about Hector. I don't know what he does. He never defends. He doesn't seem to sprint anymore. He never gets in behind. And when he does, he picks the wrong ball. Even for that Aubameyang chance. And look, that is Aubameyang's fault. He has to score there. But I don't get why Hector zipped that ball in. He doesn't need to put it across that hard. He could have rolled that ball across, and Aubameyang has... Look, it's an easy chance anyway, but he has an actual tap-in if Hector plays that ball properly. But he's just in this mindset at the moment where he zips everything across the box regardless of situation. He never rolls anything across. It's just so frustrating. Like, I don't understand what he does. Why is he there? I'm at the point I would actually rather play Maitland-Niles. Because he does everything Hector does, but he's better on the ball, he's got composure, he actually seems to use his pace. And even if he can't defend, Hector can't fucking defend anyway, or don't want to.
Just on that goal, though, I have to, and you went to that next bit of, and I know you're ranting about Bellerin at the moment, so I'm happy for you to keep rolling. But you have to look at Kolasinac and Granit. Like, I'm not saying I blame Granit totally, and I said like it wasn't Granit's fault, but what I meant was I don't care what Granit should have done. He should have just put the ball out or something, reset, let's start it again. That's where I probably think it was a bad decision by him. To look at Mustafi and Bellerin, I think, he probably drew a short straw to have a shot at Bellerin.
No, I'm not blaming Mustafi at all.
Yeah.
Mustafi couldn't commit to the front post because Helder Costa was behind him on his own. And if that was the case, you'd go, okay, Mustafi's probably done the right thing. He's hedged his bets. But when you see that Hector doesn't run at all, had Hector ran, then Mustafi could have made that decision earlier. And it may have made absolutely no difference, but give the guy a chance.
Mm-hmm.
Hector's given Mustafi absolutely no chance there.
Mm-hmm.
Watch it again.
I will watch that again, actually, yeah. Because I didn't notice that, what you were talking there, so I'm going to watch that again.
Yeah, watch when Caballero puts it in. I'm pretty sure it's Helder Costa at the back post just chilling on his own. But Mustafi can't make that early move to Caballero because if he goes too early, then Helder Costa's on his own at the back post.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So it makes Mustafi, it makes him an extra second to move, and that's why Caballero's on his own.
Okay, I'll rewatch that. Now let's.
I will add just quickly on that goal. I bailed out Granit in my viewing. I could be wrong in terms of the pass that Kolasinac played, but how he gets beat on that 1-2 when Caballero just plays the ball into Jimenez, and Granit just gets completely turned in that moment.
Well, that's the other thing. His body shape was bad, and Holding should have been tighter as well.
Yeah, so I mean, as you said, Tony, there's a string of errors that usually leads to a goal, and just because I defended Granit on that one attempt, the second one is inexcusable. You have to know better, and he's played in those positions before. It's not uncharted territory for him. He has to be aware of how Caballero is going to run into the box. There's nowhere else for him to run into. So that's something that I think it was panic to an extent. And that instance in particular is unforgivable.
Okay, let's look at a positive. We got the draw, and Mkhitaryan got the goal. Go through that one for us, Tony.
He crossed it. It went in.
It wasn't a bad hit.
Analysis on it. We took a short corner. It wasn't. It's a great ball. I'm a huge advocate of when you're crossing from the wrong side, as in if you're right-footed crossing from the left, just aim for the back post. Because the keeper can't really do anything, because any touch takes the ball the other way, like into the goal, and so he can't gamble on it going back post. And then if he stays in the middle of the goal, you can score in two ways. So it's an excellent ball, but I mean, how much can you really analyse? He's crossed the ball and it's gone in.
I just watched that. Yeah, I know. I just watched that back again. You're dead right with Bellerin.
As I said, it just doesn't allow Mustafi to cover.
So he goes over. Mustafi. Yeah, Mustafi can't get there. Bellerin, he drops back, but I see what you're saying.
That's not even ability. Just run. Just sprint. And put your body in a place where it helps your other defender.
So I'm just looking, gets a ball. Granit should have fucking hit. Granit... I'm going to blame Granit actually a little bit. Watching this back, Granit should have actually had a bit, like, I'm on the highlights, obviously. It probably didn't go back far enough. I don't know why Granit let him run to start with, the pass that ball.
As I said, I agree with Schwinn. I don't actually think he was the intended target, and if he was, it's a terrible decision by Kolasinac. But regardless of that, you can't leave a ball in the centre of midfield. You just can't do it.
I agree totally.
And he tends to do that, Kolasinac. I mean, there was another attempt that Wolves had. I think it was Jimenez. I think it was Helder Costa. We got the ball back. I think Holding recovered the ball in our box, plays it to Kolasinac, who's in some space, who just stitches up Lucas Torreira. And there's three Wolves players converging on Torreira, who obviously is out-muscled. And then Leno, of course, made probably his easiest save on the day, but it seems Kolasinac is happy to give the ball to one of his teammates in a defensive position and just bomb forward, hoping to then combine an attack. And as a defender, your first responsibility obviously has to clear the danger. And I think in certain situations, Kolasinac doesn't quite trust himself in being able to wriggle out of areas. And that not only showed on the goal we conceded, but also in that other instance.
Yeah, look, it's not pretty, boys. It's not pretty. Okay, let's try and roll through here. Man of the match, have we got one, Tony?
Oh, Leno by an absolute mile.
Yep. Schwinn?
Yep, kept us in the game, and if it wasn't for him, we'd probably have lost it, and the scoreline would have been an absolute disaster. Even late on, I think Adama Traore got in behind a couple of times. He obviously made a save of Diogo Jota's attempt. Again, I don't know where Bellerin was for that. Maybe he was around, and I'm just giving him shit unfairly, but why not? And he even showed some leadership, I think. He tried to calm his teammates down, tried to rouse them up when required. So I was very impressed by Leno yesterday.
To be fair, the best save he made, and for me it was genuinely world class, is he made a save from Helder Costa when it was on the break, which I thought was top drawer in itself, but then dived on the ball and took a kick to the head or chest from, I think it was Jimenez. And that's pure. First, it's a world class save, and then secondly, it's pure bravery to throw yourself on the ball like that. And I know we can say that's what we expect of keepers, but they wouldn't all do that. Or they would half do it, so they would put their arm in the way but move their head out of the way to try and protect themselves, and then the ball would probably go loose and someone would have a tap in. So it showed everything. I thought he had an excellent game yesterday, and as I said, it could have been 3-4-0 before Mkhitaryan's cross even went in with some of the saves he made. And I think the commentators, as I said when I watched Match of the Day last night, were raving about Leno, and the only other time he was beaten was by a Morgan Gibbs-White shot, which was fucking unbelievable. And we got away with it there as well.
Yeah, I mean that's a very good point, because if those things we don't really consider very highly, but just imagine if Czech was in goal yesterday. And this is not me digging Czech out. Anyone who's listened to the podcast knows I'm a big Czech fan, but Czech has had an injury to his head. And with that psychology, do you see him jumping onto that ball? Maybe, but I wouldn't necessarily put money on that, because he would have the fear of being struck in the head, and he knows what it's like to go through that. So for Leno to just pounce on that ball, knowing that there's contact coming, I don't think he eventually got hit on his head. I think he got hit on his hand, but still, that's very, very courageous for him to just jump in like that.
Football's a funny game though, boys, isn't it? Last week we were fucking, Cheerios, happy days, and look at us fucking go. We're top 4. This week we fucking busted asses and we look like 6. So it's a funny old game, and a couple of weeks off and Bournemouth comes along and we could be back up on. We get a good win against Bournemouth and we're top 4 and happy days again. So
yeah, just another thing I'm going to criticise, because it needs saying, but I say now, I say it every week. He has to stop playing first team players in these fucking cup games.
I was going to say that. It fucking bugs me too. And I know Welbeck got injured, Aubameyang got on, but surely was somebody else there. Where's Eddie?
He got ready to come on, and then Lichtsteiner got injured, so they had to bring Maitland-Niles on instead. But it's like, Iwobi played 90. Mickey played a part. Like, these games they don't fucking matter. We're already through. Even if we lost that game, we would have needed 1 point from fucking Carrier-Bag at home and Vorskla Politava, I think they're called, away. Like, 1 point. And that's even if we lost that game. And Sporting didn't come to win that game. I'm pretty sure if they would have said to their manager before the game, let's just play a shit 0-0 draw, we both go through, they'd have probably been delighted. But we keep playing these first team players. Holding played 90 again. Like, he's got.
We haven't even got into the FA Cup and that. What's it? Fucking EFL, the Energy fucking Bull, whatever that shit fucking thing is. What's that?
EFL Cup.
EFL Cup, yeah.
He literally has to stop trying to play our first team all the time.
I agree.
In a way, I want this, because I think he's half playing because of this run now, this unbeaten run. So I want us to beat Bournemouth, and then I think we've got Vorskla away. And in all honesty, I want us to lose that game. Not that I ever want Arsenal to lose, but
yeah, but that'll bring them back
stops the pressure of keeping on the run and going 17, 18, 20. But you're taking your first team to fucking Ukraine on a Thursday night for a game you're already through.
Yeah, I know, it's fucking frustrating, isn't it? But I think you're right. I don't think, like, in the media are going, 13 in a row, 14 in a row, and Emery's probably thinking, fuck, we're done all right here, 15, 16 in a row. But that draw wasn't pretty. Like, that was very lucky. And I don't want Arsenal to lose either, but fuck no, I reckon the boys would have been a bit panicky on that game. You boys want to get in some questions? Just got a few here.
Let's do it.
Darren Dupree. Is it time to bring some younger, more hungrier players in the starting side? I certainly think so, Tony.
I've probably overreacted in a lot of the stuff I've just said, and we're going to get a lot of the overreactions in questions. As always, I've not read them, so I don't know, but I assume we're going to get a lot of overreaction in questions. As you said, last week we was all happy as Larry, and now we're talking about giving young players games because we did have one bad and very flat performance. I'm not going to sit here and say, we should be dropping Aubameyang and Lacazette and giving Eddie a chance in the league, because let's be honest, they're both better than Eddie. And it's what we need, but we just need to be better than we were yesterday. This group of players, and I saw Schwinn had a rant on Twitter last night saying that this group of players have been good for us. They've had good games. They've had games that are not flat. So I don't think the answer is wholesale changes or even any changes really. Just this group of players need to be as good as they have been previously and not as flat as they were yesterday. I think you can maybe put it down to a bad day at the office or whatever, but I don't think the answer is we need to bring 4 players in and whatnot. I just think we need to get these players to play better, and which they have done. It's not like they're not capable. They've done it 2 weeks ago or a week ago.
Yeah.
So perform better.
It's just a bad day at the office. Look, I presume is what you said, but a bad day at the office, and let's hope it was only that. But like at the start of the season, and I know you're not the biggest fan of Bellerin, Tony, but I sat here on this podcast and I said, we have not got a fucking team like Manchester City. Did any of you boys give Iwobi a chance this season? Bellerin, Mustafi, Holding, Kolasinac, like... that's off the top of my head.
I agree. We have team Man City, but the issue is, and this is what Schwinn's point was on Twitter, I saw him arguing with someone, was that these players have been good for us this season. So there's no point saying, oh, we didn't give them a chance at the start of the season. If they'd been shit the whole time, you could go, okay, we knew they were shit. Yeah. But they were good literally 7 days ago, or 8 days.
Been brilliant.
So when they're bad, you can't go, oh, well, they're just not good enough players, because they were a week ago. So I think it does just come down to, as you said, bad day at the office, just be better. And that's why I don't think it comes down to we need this amount of changes and whatnot. The players just need to perform how they have done a couple of weeks ago and in quite a lot of games this season, and not like the complete idiots that they played like yesterday.
I haven't been on Twitter for probably a couple of weeks or a week or something. What's fucking Schwinn going on about there?
Oh, ask him.
Go on, Schwinn. What's going on?
Well, you guys pretty much nailed it on the head with that little discussion. That was exactly my point, that, I was very frustrated after the game. I still am. And my whole point was, there's obvious gaps in our team that Emery could do with in terms of bringing in new personnel that really fit his ideology and the way he wants to play. There's no doubting that. I am not questioning that. But at this moment, we have seen that our players can play better than they did yesterday. And that was simply my point. It seems that ever since Emery has come in, it is a big no to criticizing the team, individual players, and particularly the manager. And I don't understand that. We got rid of Arsene for a reason, and that doesn't mean that we will be very passive in terms of voicing our concerns. That's very hypocritical. In my view, yesterday, Emery got Plan A wrong and Plan B wrong. I think Plan B was better than Plan A, but it was nowhere near where it needed to be. And I think a lot of times when what you're trying to do is not working, you need to make some bold decisions, and you have to make them early. I think our subs were left too late as well yesterday. 15 minutes left, that's when you bring on two players who you think are going to change the game. That's too late. Yesterday's responsibility lies solely with Emery. And as Tony said at the top of this podcast, that he lost that pragmatic sense that he usually brings into these games. To the opposition, we have to respect the opposition. And Wolves are no mugs. Just because they've been promoted this season doesn't mean that you discount them. Every game in the Premier League is different and is going to be difficult. And Emery, for me, did not earn his paycheck yesterday. I might be being harsh, but I'm trying to make a point here that we have to be open to criticism when it comes to the new manager. And every time you say something on Twitter or wherever you talk Arsenal, it seems as if the argument is he needs time. He needs time. And I understand that. I said at the top of the season that he'll need at least a season to get everything in order at least. But on individual days, you can see glaring mistakes that the manager is making, the players are making. And for some reason, our fan base wants to give them immunity, and I'm not one for that.
You make a very good point, Schwinn, and as everybody here does, we probably all agree with each other, I suppose, so it's very hard to have a counter-argument with it. However, do you think fatigue is playing a bit of a role here with the players?
I do. I think... there's physical fatigue and there's mental fatigue. I think a lot of times, fans put a lot of impetus on the big games, when we were playing the Liverpools, the Man Cities and whatnot. But I, in fact, think it's harder for players like, I don't want to name names, but I think it's harder for some of our players to get out of bed for the so-called inferior teams. And that's where mental strength comes in. I don't think it was a lot to do with physical exhaustion yesterday. There was an element of it, don't get me wrong, but some of our players didn't play against Sporting. Granit Xhaka was not involved, Mesut Ozil was not involved, Lacazette was not involved, Hector Bellerin wasn't involved. And there's no excuse for making wrong decisions in key moments. You can tell if a player is out of breath and is really struggling physically. I don't think that was the case yesterday. I think that was simply not having the mental strength from the beginning to the end of finding ways of overcoming the adversity. And you need that extra motivation. And I'm very surprised that we displayed some of the characteristics we did yesterday, because that's not what you expect from Emery. That's not what we've seen so far from his team. And yesterday was a very, very different sort of psyche we witnessed, even from the manager on the touchline. I don't remember seeing a lot of jigging up. I don't remember seeing a lot of impetus being put on players. I don't remember seeing him talking to players and asking them to do things differently. Obviously, I don't know what happened at halftime, but he's very animated on the touchline, and it seemed to me yesterday, at least watching on the telly, that he just didn't have answers. And when you see a manager like that without any answers, then the players obviously feel a bit drained as well. They feed off of each other. And yesterday was quite a disaster in that view.
Yeah, fucking hell, let's hope we beat Bournemouth, eh?
I think it's going to be, I don't want to say it's going to be easier, but I think the way Bournemouth play, it's going to sort of feed into the way we like to play. They're not going to be very compact defensively. They want to come and play. That's how Eddie Howe likes to usually shape up. Let's hope that will be the case, because with that comes more open space, more time in certain cases, certainly behind the back line of the opposition. But we need to find ways of digging deeper when defenses come to just park the bus, and we need that incision, and we need that sort of clinic. Mesut Ozil, for all the praise I put on him personally, I don't think he had a very impressive game yesterday. Apart from that one chance,
he did nothing.
Apart from the one chance that he created for Lacazette, he wasn't really able to do a whole lot. Going towards the left side, trying to combine with Kolasinac, trying to combine with Granit Xhaka, but just no creativity, lack of ideas. You could see the frustration on him at the very end when he even got booked.
Yeah, wasted space.
Yeah, not his day yesterday.
I'm just biting you up, brother.
No, but it's true, isn't it?
Well, sure, he didn't have a good game, but mate, nobody did. So it's. I'm agreeing with everybody. Like, nobody had a good game yesterday. Leno obviously did, because he could have been 4-5. Who fucking knows what it could have been? But there was no creativity. And I know a bit. Like Tony mentioned, Aubameyang, Lacazette. They missed them couple of sitters, and that's obviously what they're getting criticised over. And they didn't have a good game either. But people will probably argue, did they get the ball from the midfields? Was the creativity there for them to actually do anything? I suppose is the argument for it. But I don't know. Nobody really had a good game, did they? If mids aren't performing, the strikers aren't performing. It's hard.
Yeah, they didn't have much created for them, but there's two things. When they did, they both fucked up very good chances.
Yep.
And their movement, they were both so flat and stale. Aubameyang had nowhere to go in behind, and then because we weren't getting the ball wide, he basically stood still. And then, Lacazette came short and didn't really link up well, didn't do anything. His movement was poor. He just wasn't a threat. Neither of them were a threat. I'm not digging out one over the other. So, yes, they had nothing created for them by anyone else, but they didn't help themselves by standing still. Look, when Ramsey came on, and I know that defenders have them too to think about on the pitch, but one run from deep, and for the goal, he missed a one-on-one that he should score. But that's come from his movement and a deep run. Them two weren't moving, or they weren't moving into threatening positions. So a little bit of movement, and straight away, we get a chance. As I said, the keeper makes a good save from Ramsey, and we score from the corner. But there was nothing created, but they didn't help themselves by pretty much standing still.
You think it's fatigue as well?
I don't know. Whenever anyone has a shit day at the office, there's always all these excuses offered. I don't know. He prides us on being really fit. I think up until a couple of weeks ago, I haven't checked recently, we had ran more than any other team. But then, as I said at the time, the players are playing more games because they're being made to play in these stupid competitions that we could get through with half sides, and we're playing our top players. There's always at least one top player that's playing every week. I don't know. I don't think I'm not sure about mental fatigue. Look, that anyone would be guessing. In terms of physical fatigue, I don't think it really came into it, because the way when a team lets you have the ball, naturally you don't do as much running as them because you're dictating play. Yesterday wasn't a game where we ran our socks off. As I said, with Lacazette and Aubameyang not putting in much movement, we moved the ball about side to side a lot, but there wasn't a lot of sprinting and a lot of running, so I don't see how that game could make you tired.
Mm-hmm. I'm just going to, and you mentioned about Aubameyang, and we've all said it on this podcast, like we don't like Aubameyang playing on the left. But there's going to be people probably comment and say to you, Tony, that, Aubameyang did get the Player of the Month in October.
Yeah, he started one game.
Thank you. That's all. I was just after an answer.
Look, I love Aubameyang. It's clear to anyone that listens, and obviously you two know because we speak off air. But he offers you nothing on the left as a winger with invert, like in commas. He obviously, so what, he got 5 goals, 2 off the bench at Fulham, 2 off the bench against Leicester, and then he got a goal at Palace when he started and played poor. Wasn't in the game. It's almost like playing with 10 men with him on the left, but that the invisible 11th man can pop up and score. I don't mean to call him invisible. I know that's got negative connotations, but he offers you nothing unless the ball's in and around the box, which is a brilliant trait for a striker, and people have made very good careers. Ruud van Nistelrooy was known as a legend for doing that. Done absolutely fuck all unless the ball was in the box, and then was excellent when the ball was in there, and he played for one of the best United sides. He ended up at Real Madrid. That's fine as a striker. You can't do that as a left winger.
Fucking hell, we got to sort. I think Emery's got a problem. I think he's going to have to work out. Do I switch? Look, switching Lacazette's not an option really, but we all know Iwobi plays better on the left. I'd probably like to think, and you've all pretty much said it. I think Schwinn agreed with us. Aubameyang's probably better starting up front more so than Lacazette. But then, who do you have on the right?
I mean, the right's going to be an issue. No matter, we haven't got a player to play there, so regardless of who plays up front, who plays on the left, the right's always going to be an issue. It's a difficult one because we spoke about it before. I think Lacazette's probably more important to the team than the way he builds up and links play. Yeah. Aubameyang's not but Lacazette's nowhere near the goal scorer Aubameyang is. As I said, he got Player of the Month, and it was probably deserved. He got a goal or assist every 20 minutes or something when you work 20 playing minutes. But of his 5 goals and 1 assist, there was only 1 from the start. Even his assist was off the bench at Fulham. So then you say, is he better coming off the bench? And you kind of think, well, just £60 million roughly striker, probably our best player. At least he's in the argument. Do you start on the bench?
No. Seems a bit silly, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Just quickly on that too. We've said it before. Obviously we're playing Bournemouth. Eddie Howe did get the Manager of the Month in October. Whether it was well deserved, I don't know, but yeah, he did get it.
Yeah.
Zaza, Schwinn. What do we do with Mickey?
Play him on the right. I don't want to see Iwobi on the right. And as you guys just spoke, we don't have the ideal player for the right. And I completely agree with that. But I think Mkhitaryan is the only one that's suited on the right. Whether you see that in terms of creativity, you see the partnership he had at the beginning of the season with Hector Bellerin. I think he can do a bit more in tracking back. I don't disagree with that. But I think he's also one who likes to take a bit of more risk. Yesterday when he came on, he wasn't very effective. He was rather poor, actually, apart from that one moment where he produced some quality and luck. But you can see that he's trying to do things. He's not trying to play it safe. And of course, yesterday was a situation that warranted him to take some risk. But I think overall, the reason why people don't like Mkhitaryan is because he loses the ball a whole lot. And that's a complaint we had with Alexis as well. I'm not comparing the two, but I think Mkhitaryan has a bit of a risk edge to him, that he likes to thread balls. I think he likes to try difficult things. And he takes a lot of burden off of Mesut Ozil, who yesterday I thought was burdened with a lot of creative responsibility, and Wolves did pretty well to snuff him out. If you have another creative force in the team, I think that will at least give the opposition something to think about. I remember discussing with you guys, I think a couple of weeks ago, that Mkhitaryan has a contract clause that warrants a 60% increase upon extension. So it's safe to say that he's not going to be with us for too long. But at the moment, I think he's our best option on the right.
My only worry with him on the right is, and it's always going to be a worry, because what I was actually thinking was, and we always take the piss, Schwinn, and I love Ozil as much as every other Arsenal fan, but we take the piss with each other. But Ozil on the right, Mickey at 10, but either way or either option, we have Bellerin on the right, who, as Tony said, can't fucking defend for shit. So that is my worry with whichever way you go, Mkhitaryan or Ozil.
Well, I don't think Ozil on the right is the right thing to do, defensively or offensively. I think that puts Bellerin in a much more precarious situation. I also think the way Mesut Ozil likes to drift in field, if you have Bellerin in a spell of possession high up, and Mesut Ozil is central or left of the field, then that leaves a very, very big hole in the middle of the park. So that's a very, very dangerous thing to do, I feel. If you have Ramsey at 10, that's understandable, because Ramsey can do a lot of Mesut Ozil's running for him. But with Mickey, I'm not so sure.
Mm-hmm. I just wonder. I see Mkhitaryan as, he seems to have a really good combination with Aubameyang. But with Aubameyang on the left, Mickey on the right, that combination doesn't really flourish as much as you'd like it to. I just don't know. That's where I think Mickey playing 10, Aubameyang up front, for me, and Ozil on the right, I think he'd be crossing the balls a lot better than Bellerin. I think that'd probably work better for me, but I don't know. It's just my opinion too.
Well, there's a couple of things there. Number one is when a play is in ours, when we are the ones controlling the game, then we don't necessarily line up as a 4-2-3-1. We'll have our wing backs push up high. One of Lucas Torreira or Granit Xhaka drops as a center back, so we switch to a sort of a 3-defender system. Mesut Ozil and Mkhitaryan in this case will move in centrally, and Lacazette and Aubameyang will move up top, and the width comes from the fullbacks. So in that case, Mkhitaryan and Aubameyang become closer to each other. So we might not have a lot of times when Mkhitaryan can switch with Aubameyang and connect with Aubameyang, but in terms of possession spells, he will be able to. But I wouldn't have Aubameyang on the left anyway. I'd
that's
choose
what I say.
between
I'd have
Aubameyang.
Aubameyang up front. I'd have Mickey in 10. I'd have Ozil on the right, and I'd have bloody Iwobi on the left. I think that's been an option.
I'd probably go for something similar, except Ozil at 10 and Mkhitaryan on the right.
Yeah, but then what do you fucking do with Lacazette? It's so hard.
Look, you play one of you play one of the two depending on the opposition. Maybe even sit Mesut Ozil in some games and play Ramsey, because I feel with Lacazette and Ramsey you have a bit more, because Laka likes to drop deeper and then Ramsey likes to bomb one forward. That creates space for a player to run up top. So if Lacazette is playing, then it depends what sort of an opposition system you're playing. And yesterday, obviously, Ramsey benefited from that more than Mesut Ozil did.
Mm-hmm. It's a tough one. Anyway, we'll continue to roll on. Go Tom.
Just to add on that, sorry, quickly, just on the last bit about Ramsey, I think it's the first time all season we've seen him played in probably the position he'd like to play. I'd say the first month of the season he was too high up, and then we've seen him recently in the Carabao Cup and in the Europa League, and for me he's been too deep. And yesterday it seemed to be they let him play in his natural join in the box, make late runs, and to be honest, he was on the pitch for, it seemed like, about 10-15 minutes and looked like our most threatening player, because he made them deep runs, and as I said, the goals come from his late run, and he should have scored. But I think that's the first time under Emery we've seen Ramsey play where he actually wants to, or where he's actually best, and it suited him. But unfortunately for Ramsey, that role isn't there week in, week out. But this is where, as I said, we see Emery as this tactical guy who caters to the opposition, and he didn't do that yesterday. And I feel if he did, Ramsey would have been key for that. And as I said, I would have rang on at half time.
I agree with everything you said. I'm just going to throw another spanner in the works, and me and Schwinn were just talking about, the Mkhitaryan on the right and whatnot, Tony. There has been a lot of Arsenal fans talking about Reece Nelson coming back in January. I'm not sure what his contract is. But where does that throw things in the works if that was to happen? Because we've got a lot of coverage. Well, we've got no coverage there, but we've got a lot of players that we can't fit in the team now. Yeah,
I mean, for me, it'd be a terrible idea to bring him back. One, he's been playing pretty central anyway, so he's not been playing on the right. I think we've sent him there to learn his craft, and he's doing that. You don't want to bring him back to hardly play again. And is he ready to start every week for Arsenal? I personally don't think so. So I wouldn't bring him back. In terms of, is it possible? There's rumours going around that we had an option to take him back in January. I'm not sure. If there was a fee for the loan, then there almost certainly isn't the option to bring him back in January unless we pay them the fee back. So you're paying to get your own player back, which is possible, but it's unlikely. So I don't think it will happen that he comes back. If he does, then people are going to move about in the pecking order. But it depends also what happens with Danny. If Danny's not there, then it doesn't actually move anyone anywhere because Reece takes Danny's place in the squad. I don't mean in terms of position-wise, but the places where Danny was occupying the subs bench would now be Reece Nelson, or when Danny was starting, Reece would start. So I don't think it moves anyone about, and it lowers anyone's positions in the squad due to the injury of Danny. And I think the only time anyone's really mentioned him bringing him back is since Danny's got injured.
Okay. Right, let's push through to a few of those questions. BND, it like...
Bend.
Oh, Bend. BND. It says fucking BND. It should be Ben. He forgot the E, you clown. Fucking put the E in, you fucking idiot. Mr. Gunstab Zero. Hate that fucking name too. Okay, he's got a question. Miserable cunt. With December coming up, big games, a lot of rotation during the EL games, what do you think will be our game record and why? Schwinn, go for it.
I'm not quite sure what he means. Is he asking
let's go.
Sort of
Next
points?
fucking question. Didn't like the question either. Nah. I'm joking, old mate. I love your question, love your name, hate your fucking user thing. With December coming up, big games, a lot of rotation during the last EL games. What do you think will be our game record and why?
I think he's basically just asking how do you think we'll do in December.
Yeah, so we have 6 games in December
That's not
in
right,
the Premier
surely.
League. In the Premier League.
Yeah.
Okay.
So let's just stick with those for now. That includes Tottenham, United, Huddersfield, Southampton, Burnley, Brighton, Liverpool. So that should be, that's 6. Okay. Wow, there's some tough games in there.
Say it again for me. I wasn't listening.
Tottenham at home.
Yep.
United away.
Yep.
Huddersfield at home. Southampton away. Burnley at home. Brighton away. And then Liverpool away.
Fuck, that is tough.
Yeah. So that's going to be a very challenging period. And then we obviously have Tottenham in the League Cup, which will be a midweek game, I'm guessing. So it's games are going to come thick and fast, I think.
There's also a Europa League game in there somewhere.
Yeah, there's Karabag, but I think, A, that's at home, and B, I don't think we can expect to see any starters on that day, surely. So, yeah, I know, right? But 6 games, 3 of them are going to be tough propositions. I think Brighton is not going to be easy either. It's the day after Christmas. It's away from home. Brighton are a very stubborn team. So, I'm going to be a bit optimistic here, and I'll say we'll get 13 points.
Okay, righto, there you go. Bend it like fuckwit.
Jesus Christ. Don't abuse our listeners.
I'm not abusing no one. Oh, he's got another question. Bend it like bend it. Fucking bend it. Hate that name. Is Eddie getting his shot now? Welbeck is gone, or is it a good chance we are going to look for a third striker in January? I did ask Tony that earlier, but did I say Eddie? That's a good shout out, Tony.
Well, look, that's just seen as the natural someone from within the squad that plays up front. I don't, to be honest, I didn't. Who was on the bench yesterday?
I think it was Eddie.
I think it was, yeah. Hang on, I'll have a look.
Yeah, so I think for now he maybe takes his place on the bench, but he's not going to be used in the same way. Had Danny been on the bench yesterday, 1,000,000% he would have come on.
Yeah, Eddie was there and Maitland-Niles.
Yeah, so yeah, I knew Maitland-Niles was. So yeah, Eddie may take his space figuratively in terms of it would have been Danny on the bench. Now it's Eddie. But it's not going to be the same. As I said, yesterday, if we got to 70 minutes yesterday, there's no way on earth Danny wouldn't have been on that pitch. Whereas Eddie, obviously, it's different. He's obviously not going to be seen as a viable option not long term. He probably will long term. Short term, he's not going to be seen as a viable option. He's not going to get the minutes Danny got. If Danny's out seriously, if Danny's out for, say, 6 months, then that takes him to his end of his contract anyway. And I think we probably will look to sign someone in January. A lot does hinge on Danny's injury and how long he's out for, but also Eddie could do himself favours. I mean, look at Rashford at United. No one knew who he was. He came in a Europa League game because they had about 5 injuries, scored 2, so then he got to start the next game against us, scored 2 again, and he's never really looked back. So Eddie has got to take a chance if he gets it. As I said, it may be that he starts in the Europa League, gets a goal, he's on the bench the next game, comes on in the last 20, gets another one, and then he starts looking towards the future. So he's going to get limited chances, and he has to do something with them chances to force his name into the team, into Emery's plans for right now. I have no doubt long term he's in Emery's plans, but at the moment he's probably not in the plans for this season. But he has the opportunity. He's got an audition, and it's up to him.
If you got a chance. And for those who are probably reading reports that Patrick Schick from Roma, don't want him, don't sign him, and I hope the fucking reports are wrong.
What, because you support Roma or because he's shit?
No, because he's shit. I don't want him in Arsenal. I don't want him in Arsenal. He scored 1 goal in 9 games or something. I don't want him at Roma. Yeah. Don't want him at Roma, don't want him in Arsenal. He might come good, but yeah, no, it's not because I was.
Well, Spalletti said today there's no chance he leaves anyway.
Okay, well that's good. Well, I don't know. it's good and it's not good. I'm still stuck with him somewhere. Affy, we always play out wide. The amount of times I've seen Laka free to run through mid is daft. Don't you think Emery should encourage balls through the middle? Schwinn?
I mean, wherever we find space, to be honest, but maybe Affy has some particular instances that he has in mind. I thought yesterday it was very, very compact in the middle of the park. Don't really think we had a lot of chances where we could have played Lacazette or Aubameyang through the middle. The only time I actually thought there was some scope of doing that was when we were playing balls from deep, from Mustafi, but he couldn't find his range yesterday. I mean, it's so hard. I mean, obviously we're not doubting the football IQ of our players. They obviously understand how time and space has to be exploited. Yesterday was not one of those cases because we just couldn't operate on the wings very well. So I'm not quite sure whether yesterday we had space through the middle, if I'm honest.
Okay, Gator Gooner in American sports. Probably Schwinn, you'll best answer this. In American sports, we always allude to looking ahead to the big games or the letdown after the big game because of the mental aspect. Is this the case with Arsenal, or are we just, I dare say, not good enough as the pundits state?
I think it's very difficult to answer this question. I mean, it's been one very bad performance, right? After 15 games unbeaten. I mean, on the whole, if I'd asked you guys, I'm sure at the beginning of the season, would you take it at this far into the season? I'm sure you guys would have. It's hard to cast such a wide-ranging opinion on the team as a whole. But I think there are aspects to what pundits say that are true. it's hard to maintain that consistency. We've seen that yesterday, for example, but we still got a point, which shows some sort of resilience and maybe a bit of luck. I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't necessarily say that we are on the decline, but I think that there is room for Emery to worry here, that there will be challenges that may seem easy on paper, but they will not be, especially in December and January when games come thick and fast. So I also think this international break has come at the right time. So I'm hoping there will be some sort of injection into Emery, into his understanding of the English game and how schedule can be an absolute nuisance. So maybe it's a warning at a decent time with some tough games coming up. Bournemouth is, of course, one team that is right behind us at this moment. So it's going to be, a bit of a challenge in terms of that. Points lost means they are 1 point within us. I think 24-20 is the difference right now. So maybe it's a warning at the right time. Let's look at it that way and move on from here.
Tim actually answered that question in about 10 characters. I think we'll know the answer to the question by March.
There you go. Tim, you have my spot for next week and shows from here on out.
Jake Ren AFC's with us on the Clock and Talk blog spot. Jake, he pumps out some shit with the boys. Is it Europa League or bust for us this season, Tony?
No, not for me. Again, this is another question you probably better answer in February or March. But at the moment, we're obviously through in the Europa League, so we don't have to worry about that now until February. And in that time, that we're 3 points off fourth. We're playing well enough to be in the top four. It's a weird one because I feel like we're 3 points behind Tottenham, but I feel like with the way we're playing and the way they're playing, we're actually ahead of them. We probably had harder fixtures as well. If we beat Bournemouth next week, they've got Chelsea. So obviously one of them two are going to drop points, and it could put us within one, or either in the top four again or within 1 point of the top four. So I wouldn't say we're at a stage yet where we're thinking we can sack off the league. We're never going to achieve Champions League qualification via the league and just look forward to Europa League. But as I said, in February and March, we could be 8 points off and have a couple of easy draws in the Europa League. And then you go the way we did last season when we pretty much, as soon as we drew Milan, so Osterland's obviously wasn't really a challenge. Well, it became a challenge, but when the draw was made, it wasn't seen as a challenge. And then the moment we drew Milan, which the first leg was played in March, we sacked off the league. And that could be the case again this year. But you've all got to see where you are. But I'd say definitely at this stage, we've got another 3 months where, for me, the league is pretty much our only focus. I'd say until March, it's the league or bust. And then when the Europa League comes back again, you reassess where you are.
Then it's fucking FA Cup or bust. Then it's fucking Energy Bull Cup or bust. And then it's like, fuck, no trophies. I'll stick with you, Tony, because Cosman Butter, me and Schwinn went through what we would have, probably done, how we set up. He asked, how would you have set up the team differently? I presume he's talking about yesterday.
Look, it's difficult because I probably would have picked the starting 11 he picked. I maybe would have changed out Holding for Socrates, but I would have gone with that team. So I think I would have made different changes at half time. I would have brought Ramsey on. I probably wouldn't have sacked off the width the way he did. I think he completely disregarded it. But in terms of before the game, and you guys know I always do this. When the team news comes out, I always say either if I agree with it, what changes I would have been made. So then if I'm right after the game, I can say I was right. And if I was wrong, I remember a few years ago, I went to Arsenal-Tottenham and we was 2-0 down. And I tweeted before that we started Ben Ayoun and someone else. And I remember slating him before the game, Wenger before the game. And then we end up winning 5-2. So I can comfortably say I was wrong. So I always try and say before the game to stop me being one of these people that says, it's brilliant before the game, and in hindsight they go, I would have done this, that and the other. I've got to be honest, before the game I would have picked the same team he did.
It's very hard to disagree because, like, how can you? And I know, look, people are reacting now because it was a poor game and we drew. But what have we won? 16 and what is it? 16 undefeated or something? 2 draws in there. So how are you going to come out and go? Oh, I'm going to pick these younger players, or I'm going to do this. You're not going to. No one would do that. Like, I don't know why you do that. So. Yeah, it's a very hard one.
I think selection, as I said, I think is what most people in reality would have done before the game. As I said, with hindsight, people are saying they would have done this, that, and the other. But I think in reality, I saw loads of tweets when the team came out saying, "Yeah, perfect, exactly what I would have done." Blah blah blah. I think he should have had a better game plan because it seemed like we had none. We said their wingers had the freedom of the pitch. We moved the ball too slow. But in terms of personnel, I wouldn't have done anything different at the start of the match.
No one would. Nobody would. Maybe a Wobie. Look, and then I was thinking maybe a Wobie on the left, but then what the fuck do you do with Aubameyang? So you fuck. Of course he's going to start on the right. Socrates.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, I think the only questionable change would have been potentially Mickey for a Wobie. But apart from that, I think that 10 of that team yesterday picked itself.
And it's going to every week.
Well, yeah, I mean, Socrates is going to come into the argument, and I don't know if he's going to look back at the games like Leicester, like Fulham, where Aubameyang didn't start and we arguably won them more comfortably. But again, it's difficult because Fulham, Danny Welbeck played a huge part, who obviously we're without him now. And Leicester, we were pretty shit until Aubameyang came on. So you can look at, we won the games where we started without him. But as I said, one of them, the option's taken away because Danny Welbeck can't play. And the other one, the game only changed when he came on. So it is a difficult one. But I would say at least 8 of that team's picking itself.
Look, we all said this pretty much at the start of the season. Well, when we started going on a bit of a run. Look, Emery and... I know Schwinn might give him a bit of stick here because he's probably sick of cunts saying, fucking give, Emery's a fair go type thing. But he's still learning this team. This team is still learning him. But we're actually getting results. We haven't gone 10 losses in a row or anything yet. So it's not the end of the world, I don't think.
No, it's not the end of the world, but it all comes down to, as the argument Schwinn was having on Twitter last night, we have seen this group of players under Emery perform better.
Shit, yeah.
Yeah, so that's where it comes down to. I know what you mean. They're still learning, but when they perform better under him already, it's like they're learning backwards. Because it's like 2 weeks ago we were saying they've already learned. And then now this week they're still learning. I think Swinn's right. At the moment, it seems like, I don't even want to say criticism. It seems like at the moment you can't say anything negative without people going, this, that, and the other. Yeah, but there's always negative aspects. I'm sure City fans find when they drew at Liverpool when they were abject, or when they drew against Wolves, they would have found negatives. There's always negatives, but at the moment it seems like we're not allowed to say them.
Have they got fans, City?
Oh, they're empty chairs.
I see what you're saying, and I get Schwinn's point too. But how long do you give him though, boys? How long? At what point do you start saying fuck? And Schwinn's jumped already and said well, I'll just clarify, Schwinn, you are blaming Emery for yesterday.
Partially, yes.
Yeah. So am I.
Yeah, and Tony, you are too. So okay, so we're starting to see the turn of Emery pull your fucking head in basically.
No, but this is what I'm saying. It's a very unpopular opinion. Like, as I said, Swin tweeted that yesterday and he got a load of, I'm not saying abusive comments, but a load of negative comments about it. Yeah. If anyone criticised Emery, it's, you've got to give him a chance. But, yeah, I agree we've got to give him a chance. But when we're bad, what do you want me to say? Like, if I think he's made mistakes, I'm going to say I think he's made mistakes. I'm not saying, we had a bad game yesterday, sack Emery. But if he's made a mistake, what do you want me to do? Ignore it?
Oh, no, you've got to criticise it.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. At the moment, it seems like you're not allowed to.
It's ridiculous. I don't get on Twitter as much as you two boys. Lacazette, has he been copping criticism yet? Is he still getting the fucking ride?
That kid is the darling of Arsenal fans. He's not gonna get a whole lot of stick just yet, especially with the new manager. And it's as if it's his first season all over again.
Fucking Teflon Don.
Okay. So Henry Stickland. I'll just read it because we did touch on it. Do you think that Reece Nelson will be worth getting back in January, as the injury wellbook looks like it may take him out of the club football? So yeah, me and Tony basically touched on that before. So thank you, Henry. That RC fella, that was absolute shit fest. We only got going in the last 15 minutes. Wolves refused to press us and come forward, and we didn't know what to do with that. Are you surprised, like me, that Emery couldn't find a strategy to beat it? Did he set us up wrong from the start yet again? Who wants to tackle that one, Schwinn?
I agree. I think he didn't set us up correctly. I am very surprised because, although this is Emery's first season in England, there was a lot of talk about video analysis, learning the opponent, USBs and all that sort of spiel when Emery came in. And you would imagine with that sort of discipline, Emery himself is very much involved in analyzing teams, or someone from his backroom staff is. And that didn't seem to be the case yesterday. As Tony talked about, this is how Wolves have shaped up in the past few weeks, months, whatever. So this was not a tailored strategy from their part to come and snuff us out. They stick to, they basically did what they've done all this time, and we couldn't find answers. It's surprising. It's also humbling. I think it's fair to say that a point rescued will also be seen that it could have been all three lost. So one thing we've seen from Emery is that he doesn't hold back. He'll keep asking for more, and he'll keep asking for more from himself as well. So I'm not too worried about Emery in that regard, but I think it's a very humbling experience that we went through yesterday, and with the tough fixtures coming up, it's not the worst thing for us to happen.
Okay, that RC fella also asked, 6 games since our last PL clean sheet. Our defence is letting us down time and time again. Palace's only good result of late was against us when we conceded twice. Our goal today should have been the winner if Granite's double stitch up twice on the goal. Leno, man of the match for me. Agree, Tony?
Agree that Leno was man of the match. I think you'd be an idiot if you didn't. In terms of, look, we've been through the goal. Granite makes 2 mistakes, but it's littered with mistakes. It's interesting with the clean sheets because I think we've had 2, Watford and Everton, and they've both been with this centre back pairing. I know Socrates came off against Watford, so but Holding played the majority of the game with Mustafi. So it's a weird one because he's saying not he's saying, but you think, it's been 6 games without a clean sheet. Do we change it? But it would be changing it back to what hasn't got a clean sheet at all. And what did we start the season with? Was it 6 in a row without keeping a clean sheet?
Yeah,
something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, so it's the run has been with whoever we played, it seems, and the only time we have got a clean sheet is when these 2 have played. And even with the keeper, the clean sheets were Watford, where Leno came on, and Everton, where Cech played. Cech was arguably man of the match. So Leno's not had a clean sheet start yet in the league, unless I'm forgetting something.
No, I think you're right. I don't think he has either.
Go on.
Sorry, just quickly. I think another important aspect of that equation is Lucas Torreira, because I think the only time we got clean sheets was with him in the team, as opposed to the beginning of the season when Guendouzi was starting. Correct?
Yeah, of course. So he's a big part. But that's what I'm saying. It's like you're looking like, do we change the defence? But you're changing it to a defence that hasn't kept the clean sheet. But then the defence didn't have Torreira in front of them.
That's right.
He came on in games and They conceded while he was on the pitch at Cardiff, Newcastle, Chelsea. That's just off the top of my head. I can't even remember who else we played. West Ham, he wasn't on the pitch. So it is one of them. It's a difficult one. It is a problem. But again, I'll go back to what I always say: it's system, not players. I don't care who we had at centre back yesterday. If you're that exposed, if Kolasinac and Hector are both that high up at the pitch, and Granit makes them 2 mistakes, we could have God himself and I don't know, another god from another religion, and they would have conceded.
Okay, Sultan asks, what left back can we realistically get in January to replace either Monreal or Kolasinac? I'll get one name off his both. Schwinn?
Not a clue.
Okay, Tony?
I don't really know. We've been linked with the Argentinian left back that plays for Ajax. I'm not going to butcher his name. It starts with Tag. That'll do.
Tagliafico.
Yeah, that'll do. We've been linked with him. From what I've seen, I've not been too impressed, but I know we've been linked with him. Everyone wants to talk about Chilwell, but he's just signed a new deal and he'd cost stupid amount of money. I don't think we'll go for a left back in January. Is the answer? But if you're asking for one name, I don't have one.
Okay. Vish says, can we blame our Disney?
Oh wait! Whoa!
What?
You not answering?
Me? I've got no idea.
Okay.
I've had this conversation before. I really struggle.
Yeah. No, just so you can't come back in a bit and say, "Oh, you two sitting on the fence" if you don't have an answer.
No, sorry. I've got nothing. No, and look, it's probably got us all by surprise, that question. That's because we do excellent research here. But I've just the top of my head, I can't even think of. No, can't even really think. Who was that? There was a couple in the Dutch league, wasn't there, Schwinn, that we talked to earlier?
Talking about the Argentinian that plays for Ajax has been linked and not too expensive. There's obviously the Leon left back's been linked. He hasn't been linked. I think fans are talking about him more than there's any been actual links. There's Gaya. But yeah, nothing really. As I said, I don't think we'll do anything in January in that department anyway.
Who was that one that you were talking about a couple of weeks ago? Was that a left back that you were talking about in the B League or something that Sven was looking at that we were going to sign? Was that a left back?
He ended up going. He went somewhere.
Oh, okay.
That was Hamza Mendel. We wasn't sure at the time, but then I looked after, and it was who he was talking about.
Yeah, okay. Okay, Vish, can we blame our dismal performance on Carl Jenkinson? Okay.
Gunnosaurus didn't cheer hard enough.
Poor cunt did nothing wrong, still gets to blame. The useless twat is about as useless as a nun in the brothel. Fucking Vish is into this poor cunt. On a serious note, fucking Vish, fuck mate.
Has he not seen Jenkinson's reverse no-look pass on Thursday?
He might have missed that game. Do we attribute the performance to a lack of desire, motivation from the players? They get Wolves drew with City. Oh, they forgot Wolves drew with City and United, did they?
Yep.
Look,
none of this has been about Wolves are a bad team, because they're clearly not. We set up completely wrong. We didn't change the game in the right way, and we just looked devoid of ideas. I don't think there's an embarrassment in drawing to Wolves. I think the way we played is, I don't want to say embarrassing because that's strong, but the way we played is probably not acceptable. But the drop in points to Wolves is not like, they're not like a League Two team, and we've drawn 1-1 at home with Lincoln City. Wolves are a very decent side that will take points off a lot of teams. They're very hard to play. But what we done was, as I said, that anything I say embarrassing, not acceptable. I don't mean it that strong, but not good enough. What we done wasn't good enough.
Mm-hmm. Vish goes on, it's a good thing I was high on the moon rocks. Must be something that you drink over there, Schwinn, is it? The moon rocks.
Yeah, for the kids listening, it is something you drink. Let's move on swiftly.
It's a non-alcoholic. It's like Pepsi.
Oh, is it? There you go. Is it really? Fuck off. Seriously?
It's something that you drink and makes your lungs feel very happy.
Your lungs feel happy. Fuck.
Let's move on.
How do I get some of that shit? I've got no idea. I've got no idea. Okay, for this match, I'll catch up with you after now. I would have had a stroke watching us play. Does Emery need to tweak our system, or does he need to instill a motivation, mental fortitude into our players? The Sporting, Lisbon, and Wolves performance weren't real good. Schwinn?
I think it's a tough question because
he's comparing both games there, really, and two different teams.
And very different teams. Both the teams we fielded out were very different, and on one day we lacked incision, on one day we lacked quality. I guess you could make an argument that on both days we lacked similar sort of things from our game, but they were for very different reasons. I think it's hard to, as I said, circle in on one thing very generically. It's a wake up call. I think that's the best way to frame this. That not every game is going to be easy in the Premier League, especially against the more inferior teams, quote unquote inferior teams. And you want to give that benefit of the doubt to a new manager that's just come to England. This has not been his playground, and he'll soon realize that it's a much more level playing field than some of the other leagues in Europe, at least. So it's a combination of both the tactical tweaks, as Vish mentioned, and the mental fortitude, motivation. How you go about doing those is his headache, not mine. So let's see how he moves on from here and what sort of bold decisions he takes. Does he hook Mesut Ozil for a poor performance? Does he throw in a Guendouzi for a ground shock? I'm just throwing ideas here. I'm not throwing suggestions, but it's going to be interesting to see how he deals with rotation, particularly in December and January.
I'm more interested in those moon rocks.
Let's not talk about that.
There's no comments going on anywhere. Fuck, mate.
Kids listen to us.
Do they really, kids? Shouldn't be listening to this podcast.
Don't alienate our audience. You've already called one of them a fucking idiot. Now you're telling kids to not listen.
I didn't call him a fucking idiot. You just said his name's shit. MAA Gunner. Do you think Ramsey... oh, fucking hell. Okay. Do you think Ramsey dysfunctions our midfield? He leaves too many gaps, and if you want to play him, you would have to build a team around him, which can't be good, as we have better players in the position he plays. Tony?
I think it's probably a fair assessment. You also need the right player up front. I think Ramsey would do okay off Lacazette, because Lacazette leaves the space empty in the box and it gives Ramsey space to run into, whereas Aubameyang occupies the box, so it doesn't give Ramsey space to run into. I don't know if this functions our teams right. You have to get him in the right role, so that the building the team around him. I mean, look, on Thursday he was played as one of the two in front of the back four, which Emery likes. And he was pretty disciplined. He was really disciplined, probably too much so. I think he played way too deep. As I said, we've seen him played at 10, which is too high up. He needs to get the best out of Ramsey. As I said, you need to let him make them late runs into the box. And I don't think there's any system Emery's going to play that allows him to do that, which is probably why they're not offering him a contract. As I said, I think dysfunction's probably a bit harsh. But I don't think you need to build the team around him, but you need to give him a role that suits his game. And Emery's not going to do that. So I think the year he probably played his best football, when he got 16 or so goals, whatever it was, the team was built around Ozil, but it allowed Ramsey to play his natural, or not his natural game, the game he's best at. So I don't think you need to build it around him, but I think you need a shape that suits him.
It's very hard, but he's not even sticking around, is he? So
no, but I think that's more. I don't think it's because Emery doesn't think he's a good player. I just don't think he fits into what Emery wants to do. He always plays two sitting quite deep in front of the defenders wherever he's been. He done it at PSG, and here he's obviously done it with at the start of the season Xhaka and Guendouzi, and then since then Torreira and Guendouzi. Ramsey's definitely never going to be one of them two. So then your only other option is as a 10, and Ramsey's not a 10. We don't play a centre midfielder. We play two defensive midfielders, an attacking midfielder, and wingers. Well, not wingers, but wide men.
Yeah.
So
and then
Ramsey is Ramsey is the traditional centre midfielder. It's not. I'm not comparing them in terms of quality, but if we had Steven Gerrard, where would you play him in this team? That's the sort of thing.
Because so you're saying he's a box-to-box midfielder?
Yeah, he's a traditional centre midfielder.
Yeah.
And that we just don't play them. As I said, Gerrard's probably the best I can think of in recent time that's played that role. And if we had peak Gerrard now, he wouldn't. You'd have to mould to what he's good at, because you wouldn't have him as one of the two in front of the defenders, because that curbs everything going forward. And he certainly was never a 10.
I know hypothetically, but if you had Gerrard, well, you'd. And this comes back to this question: you'd build a team around him, wouldn't you?
Yeah, but I'm saying you don't have to build the team around them. You just have to have a system that allows them to play that role. It's not like you put Ramsey in and then base the whole team around that, because I don't think any year under Wenger we've done that, and especially not Ramsey's best year. As I said, the team was built completely around Ozil, but it so happened that Ramsey got to play in his best position, or his best role, not position, his best role.
Yeah. It's a hard one with Ramsey. I don't know. It's a really hard one. MAA Gunner, do you think we should start Aubameyang Lacazette, not only because of the Welbeck injury, but also because no one wants to see Aubameyang on the left? We've gone over this, and I don't think any of us really come up with a solution. Obviously, Aubameyang's going to start on the left. Lacazette's going to start in the middle, and unless one of you boys want to add something, how else do you got anything else? I don't know.
Well, I think you two were talking about it earlier, and I was going to say, I think had there not been an international break, if we had a game next week or midweek, I think Aubameyang would be on the bench. Because there's that 2 weeks now, I'm not sure what's going to happen, and I don't know if he'll start on the left. You never know what injuries are going to come on. But I think had there just been like a normal week, I think Aubameyang probably would have been dropped.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Can I just quickly add something on that as well?
Of course you can.
I think we'll miss Welbeck way more than people realize. Obviously we've spoken about how he's not the best footballer, but he brings on a lot of energy in late in games. Even against Liverpool, although Aubameyang was very, very good, and so was Lacazette. They both played very well, but we only scored once Welbeck came on. And he sort of played an indirect role in that goal. He's another person that gives the opposition something to think about. People may not fear his finishing, but they fear what he can do off of it. He can provide a lot of energy. He can provide a threat aerially. And not having that option on the bench is going to be a massive tool that Emery has lost from his arsenal. So it's come at a very, very bad time, this injury. And, of course, it's not going to be a short one. So I wouldn't necessarily be surprised if we, as MAA Gunner says, if we take part in a bit more rotation just to make sure that, we're keeping both of them healthy and fit.
Mm-hmm. MAA Gunner goes on, no hard feelings, Tess. Where's this fucking going? But why is it always granite? And he's got your dumb fucking hashtag, Schwinn. Do you press it?
What am I?
Do you press it? Fucking. Because MAA Gunner. Yeah, he's a cheeky cunt, isn't he? How do we block this cunt? Fair dinkum. Fucking block. Why is it always granite? Why is it always granite? Is because you're always looking at granite because he's so fucking sexy. So you can't take your eyes off Granite. So you're always looking at him. You weren't looking at Kolasinac, who passed the ball over.
Can I say, Taz, that's Granite's fifth error of the season. directly leading to a goal. That's most
not bad. That's not bad considering.
That's most in the Premier League.
That's not bad, to be honest. Really, 5 errors out of how many games? That's pretty good stats.
Leading to a goal. I'm surprised it's that high. Even off the top of my head, I can only think of Cardiff.
I'd like to know where he got the fucking stat from.
I read it somewhere on Twitter, but it was from.
You read it from some gay ass mate on fucking Twitter.
It's from a verified stats account. I don't remember exactly where, but I remember.
Dig it out.
But again, it's one of them because do they count multiple errors? Because Granit has played a part in that error as we discussed earlier, same at Cardiff. There were still a lot of errors after, but we've conceded 15 goals, so he's basically been at fault according to that stat, if it's true, for a third of our goals. It's mad.
Okay.
I'm trying to think of other ones. Shrin, have you got anything? Cardiff yesterday.
I'm going to go through them all the fucking games. We're not leaving this podcast till we go through every fucking one now. Fuck you. Okay. Arsenal, Manchester. Obviously, we lost 2-0. Remember the 2 goals? The City
Sterling
scored?
and Bernardo.
Do you remember who was at fault?
Was Granit at fault for the Bernardo goal? No, not quite.
No,
I mean, he wasn't in that position.
He had a bad game, but not. I don't remember an error for the goal.
Okay, Chelsea. There's 3 goals there. Chelsea.
No, he was hooked. He was hooked at halftime.
Yeah, they'd scored 2, but they weren't his fault.
1 at West Ham.
Don't remember it.
Arnautovic, but I don't think it was anything to do with Granit.
Cardiff. They got 2.
One of them was
his fault. Yes. Yep. Newcastle got 1.
Back post header, nothing to do with him.
Are we counting Europa League? No, I don't know.
Swim was your stat counting Europa League?
Didn't say.
Well, you said most in the Premier League, so it must be Premier League only.
Okay.
Yeah, most in the Premier League.
Everton was a clean sheet. Watford was a clean sheet. Fulham
was Monreal's fault.
Okay. Leicester, they got 1.
Who scored their goal? It was only a couple of weeks ago.
3-1.
Oh, Ken Chilwell, own goal. No, nothing to do with Xhaka. Oh, wait, who played the crossfield ball that got cut out?
Give me a look.
I don't think it was Xhaka. The ball came across to Chilwell and he pissed past Bellerin. It wasn't.
No, it wasn't Granit. Okay, Liverpool 1-1.
No, nothing to do with him.
There you go. So your stat can go and fuck itself. Tell your Twitter mate to go and fuck himself.
Fair enough.
Fucking 5 fucking shit. Fucking what a shit stat that is. Anyway. Let's go. Podcast on. I forgot where I'm up to. Okay, Justin. Do you think Arsenal fans are starting to become more reliant on second half performances? All I see at half every game this season is people tweeting second half FC. I did notice this as well. It is a bit of a problem, boys, and I'll start with you, Schwinn, but we are very slow to start this season in a lot of games and obviously coming back in the second half. And that for me is a bit of a worry, but in saying that, we're not putting our head down and tail between our legs either.
Yeah, it's been an odd sort of transition in those terms because the second half performances have been so different than the first half. And the way we've set the tempo, they've really been, most of the games have mostly been tales of two halves. Apart from that Liverpool game, which was just spot on in a lot of its tempo. I don't really care about how our performance differs from half to half, as long as there's improvement and there's a realization from the manager that we need a tactical shift. You can prepare for a game as much as you want, but you also know that the opposition is going to prepare for a game, and they will try to counter your countermeasures. So it's not always going to be the case where Plan A is successful and that Plan A works seamlessly. The issue has been that our Plan A has been rarely correct. And that can be a worry, especially when you know your manager is a pragmatic one. You don't really expect that. Again, it's early in the season. I think this is where you can use one of those arguments. Emery will evolve, the team will evolve, players will come in, players will go out. I am not paying too much attention to our first half performance versus the second. I think that's all right. It's a part of the learning curve, that one. So I'm patient with that.
Okay. I just bloody had a look at that Leicester goal, Tony. So, and because, interesting enough, I'd like to know how many, what's Bellerin's stats, because I look at here and that goal that Leicester scored via Arsenal, Chua races forward from fullback, taking the ball perfectly first time and shoots low across goal, it deflects unfortunately off Bellerin and bounces over Leno into the net.
Yeah, it was a cross.
Yeah.
It was a cross, Chilwell. But, I mean, look, again, I don't know where these stats come from, because are they going one mistake per goal? Because, as I said, for me, Granit made 2 mistakes for that goal. Kolasinac made 1, Hector made 1, and Holding arguably made a small one. So,
I don't know.
Are they putting a number against 5 people or 6 people for that goal? Do you know what I mean? It's all interpretive as well.
Earlier.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So this one, Fulham, there's a goal there against Fulham. This one, obviously, Holding and Mustafi. And Monreal gives the ball away. So, yeah.
Monreal gave it away stupidly. Holding and Mustafi were arguably too square. But, again, you don't expect Nacho. If Nacho doesn't give the ball away in the 45th minute and just hoops it long like he should have done, then they're caught square because it's not expected the ball to come back at them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, that's what they're basically saying here. Monreal gives the ball away, and then, they're basically saying that Mustafi and Holding, say, on the stat, do all 3 of them get the blame there or what?
Especially if you don't know who it was that set the stat. It's just one of Schwinsburner's accounts.
Guarantee it. What is it? Pick on Granite?
No, hardly. I was just, trying to poke the bear a bit, but you proved me wrong, so I'll hold my hands up high.
Good man, like you should, you little cunt.
Fuck off, you prick.
Brads asks, with Welbeck's horrible injury, we are in desperate need for a striker. In January, Aubameyang, Lacazette, both starting league games. Would you guys buy a winger and drop either Lacazette or Aubameyang, or get a striker for the bench? Schwinn?
Oh boy, I wouldn't make too many moves. I'm not one fond for making deals in January. I can see why people are thinking like that. So I'm not denying that that's a understandable train of thought, but I wouldn't necessarily spend money in January just because of a short-term injury.
I don't know. Like, let's say worst case is 6 months, and touch wood, right? I don't ever want ends. Where do we go? Like, do you give Eddie a go? Or what's your thoughts, moving forward? 6 months they go, okay, well, that's how long it's going to take, and Welbeck's out for that long. Do you have to nearly look at buying someone in January, or do you run with Eddie?
I mean, I go with Eddie, and it's not about 6 months, even if it's 4 months, right? When we're into the Europa League season, back into the knockout stages. So look, that's when you need depth, and arguably even during January and December, just because you have so many games. But the issue is not the need. I think all of us agree there's a need of someone who can come off the bench, irrespective of them being a striker or a winger, who can provide some pace, some energy, some sort of creativity, and maybe have an eye for goal. But the problem remains that in January, to attract talent and to steal talent away from any of the big teams or any team, you have to pay a certain premium. And with our financial situation, or what has seemed to be our financial situation, that's not going to be the case, because we want to maximize our funds and what we can get out of every dollar we spend. And in January, you just don't get a bang for your buck. Unless, of course, Sven has identified someone like Guendouzi, that fits that age profile, that fits that talent profile, who's a bit versatile, who can slot in, in the 60th, 70th minute to bring about some impact. I can see us going for that sort of a signing, but it's not going to be a big name, well-known quantity around Europe who's going to cost 30, 40, 50, 60 million. It's not going to happen.
Mm-hmm. Tony, you opened up at the start of the podcast on Welbeck's injury and basically said, let's hope it's what it is for 2 months and before we jump the gun. But just after going through a couple of these questions and, recording for an hour and a half here, I'm going to jump the gun and ask a question. Can we be competitive in all the league, all the competitions and leagues and whatnot that we want to be with Aubameyang, Lacazette? I'm going to throw in Iwobi, even though we know he's going to be either used on the right or left, and Eddie.
Competitive, yeah. For me, the issue still remains. It all goes back to the right wing. Because at the moment, we got no one to play there. So if Iwobi plays there, Aubameyang has to play on the left, which means him and Lacazette are both on the pitch at the same time. If we had a right winger, we could put Iwobi on the left. You could play Aubameyang or Lacazette, not both of them. And then they'd be resting, so they'd have time. You could rotate them or use them however you see fit. At the moment, we don't really have that option because Danny's out and we haven't got a right winger. So previously, you could have rested Aubameyang, played Danny left, Iwobi right, and Lacazette up front or Aubameyang up front, and you still get the same rest and rotation. At the moment, you can't do that. The other thing I want to say, if it is 6 months with Danny, 6 months is basically forever because they're not going to give him his contract if he's out for 6 months, and it would take him to the end of the season, give or take maybe a week. So if it is 6 months, this is why I usually would agree with what Schwinn just said about not signing in January, but if it is 6-7 months, I think they maybe will because, as I said, it's not 6-7 months, it's forever. He's gone if that's the case. So I think that's an issue. I think hopefully they would have identified the right winger slot anyway. I'm not saying it'd be a direct replacement for Danny, but if they were half thinking about a right winger and thought, okay, maybe we'll leave it till the summer, I think Danny being out, if he is out for that long, would have brought them plans forward. Similar to, I know it was a completely different fee, completely different situation, but Nacho Monreal was, when we signed him, was on the radar for the summer. Kieran Gibbs got injured, so they accelerated it and brought it forward. And I think if Danny is out for a long time, that could happen. Yeah, and in terms of, it doesn't, I've said this a million times, it doesn't have to be a top-class player, just be anyone that's adept on the right. And I've said this 1,000,001 times, we should have signed Adama Traore.
Okay, you beat me to it. Schwinn, give us a name you think that, you'd like to see come in, and realistic, obviously, if we had to.
Look, I have no clue. The way things are going now with Sven, especially with Raul and his South American connections, I don't even waste time thinking about that, and particularly for January, because I don't think we'll be doing any sort of business especially with the well-known players. So I'm not going to rack my brain here only to be proven wrong. Thank you very much.
The Dembele rumours are going to start again.
You know it. Malcolm, Dembele, anyone who...
Dembele missed training the other day, so they fined him and they said you're not in the squad. But the same as Arsenal, if you're not in the squad, you still have to turn up. And apparently Dembele walked into the ground 10 minutes after kickoff. I heard this on the radio last night, so it's TalkSport, so you can judge the reliability for yourself. But that was on TalkSport last night, so it seems like he's having problems there. As is Malcolm, as he started his first game yesterday, he obviously came on in the Champions League and scored against Inter. So yeah, the Dembele rumours are going to come around again.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I saw someone tweeted a screenshot of their Instagram that said Ousmane Dembele is now following Robert Perez. So yeah, let's cue the Dembele to Arsenal rumours.
Can you think of any offhand whose contracts are expiring though?
That's a good question. I mean, there's Anthony Martial, but of course he's more suited to the left.
Isn't Mata? Isn't Mata?
Well, yeah, I was going to say he's been very strongly linked. His contract's up, but they would wait. They wouldn't pay a fee. They'd wait for the summer, especially if he's already agreed. But again, he's not for me. I like Mata, but he's not the type of player I want. I want a proper winger. He's someone that can play from wide right. He's going to cut in field. He's got a lovely left foot, lovely cultured player. But I want a winger.
Okay. I'm just trying to think. There was somebody at Atletico Madrid I was talking about.
Well, we've been linked with Thomas Partey, but he's not a winger.
No, Gordon. Diego.
He's a
Gordon.
centre back.
Yeah, centre back.
And never in a million years would he. I mean, he was linked with United, and he signed a new contract in the summer.
Oh, did he? Because I was reading it the other day. I thought they were saying his contract was expired. Okay,
No, United made an offer for him. That his agent rang United and said, he's available for this price because there was a term in his contract, and they were basically trying to get United, Atletico, to hurry up and offer him a new deal.
Yep. Okay. Yeah, I'm just.
So I'm looking at the list as well. Why don't you go first, Taz?
I was just reading, and this was a shout out for the question on left back options. Despite a huge price tag, Manchester City played for Kyle Walker and Benjamin Mendy. Fullbacks generally do not cost. Non-real. Felipe Luis of Atletico Madrid, they're saying.
He's already failed in England. I like him. Failed at Chelsea.
And Nicholas, I don't know what his name is.
Tagliafico.
Yeah, don't want to butcher that one. Yep. So that's the two they're basically saying, Schwinn. That's all I got.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of forwards, there's Angel Di Maria. There is Munir El Haddadi, that's an interesting name out there. Anthony Martial, of course. Arjen Robben, 35 by the time 2019 rolls around. Probably not an option.
I thought he agreed an extension.
Well, this article has been updated a month ago, so it's possible that
I thought recently I read within probably the last 2 weeks that he agreed an extension. I could be wrong, but I saw it on Twitter. Which again,
personally, I'd like Anthony Martial. I think he's proven, like he's now proven in the Premier League for me. Like,
not on the right though, is he?
No, that's the only problem. He is on the left.
I don't think there's a cat and nails chance he doesn't sign to United.
United would be mad to let him go, surely.
Well, it's not up to them in theory, but it is and it isn't. If he doesn't sign a contract, he goes. But they'll make sure he signs because of what they've paid for him and future transfer value. Even if they have to offer him in terms of wages. Where does he go? Huh?
I'm not even sure if he's got some stellar options, to be honest. I mean, this is not doubting him at all, but I'm just looking around Europe.
I think most would take him.
I'd imagine because, Monaco.
Even if you sign him for free, he's worth 50 million the next day. So for free, I think pretty much anyone would take him.
Well, it's about where he gets game time too, though, isn't it?
Well, he'd get game time in Monaco.
Football's so business based. Most teams would take him. And I think the best Martial, which we've not seen consistently, would get game time at most places anyway.
I mean, I don't disagree with that in terms of his quality. I think he's probably one of the best wingers out there, top 5, top 7, whatever you want to call it. I'm trying to think of places where he could slot into the starting 11 without having to displace someone of a big name. And a team that can afford to pay, all the bonus and the high fee that he'll command on a weekly basis. I don't think Bayern can afford it.
No transfer fee. And the wages.
That's true. Yeah, I guess they can obviously sort that out through his contract.
United will make him sign. They'll just offer, even if the issue of United is Sanchez. His wages are giving everyone else a target. It's similar with Ozil at Arsenal, but. With United, no, as I said, the next day he signs a contract, he's worth 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 million. So even if they have to pay way over the odds and they fully intend on selling him so they don't have to pay over the odds for that long, I'd imagine they'll do it. They've got money to do it.
I think an interesting domino effect here could be if Eden Hazard is to leave and go to Real Madrid, Chelsea might be sniffing around Martial because they could offer him that spot. And they could offer him the money he's been looking for as well.
Yeah, as I said, I don't think it will come to it. I think United will make him sign.
There's other names here. Fekir, obviously, they're going to be Fekir. And
he was linked to Chelsea yesterday.
Was he? And Leon Bailey.
Yeah.
Leon Bailey's an interesting one.
Yeah.
Again, I mean, the thing is with... I know it's not like for like, but Reece is outperforming Bailey. So do you go and spend 50, 60, 70 million on someone who your youth product is, who you're getting back, is outperforming?
Yeah, that's true. Is he playing? Is he going really well, Reece? Is he?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a joint top scorer before the weekend, I think. But no, he wasn't. That's bullshit. He was doing well. I think he's got 4 and 5 or something before the weekend.
Yeah.
Scored again this weekend. Yeah.
Well, there you go. Okay, yeah, it's going to be interesting. Transfer window, boys. Very interesting. So.
It probably won't. January never is.
But we'll talk it up. Okay, international break for 2 weeks. We haven't.
Before we go there, Tez, there's another question I think you've missed out on, so I'll throw it to you.
Yep.
This is again from Brad's. Is it a coincidence that since we've signed Granit Xhaka and Mustafi, we've gotten worse in the league defensively? Too many individual mistakes from those who have cost us goals, if you're honest. We were better defensively with Coquelin and Gabriel.
I don't think so at all. I disagree with whatever he says and where's he getting these stats from that obviously Granit, he must be getting the same stats as your mate, Schwinn. your fucking burner account. Like, we just gone through all the games and could find one, and people are going to jump on and argue with us, but fuck me. 2 weeks ago, he's fucking wanking over him. How good he was against Liverpool. He had one bad game. Well, he's had a few bad games, but he's had a bad game like every other fucking player on that team yesterday, and yet he's the player who gets hung. And poor old Mustafi, like, did he really have that bad a game yesterday?
No, I thought he had a better game than Holding. And in fact, I think Jake... and I think Jake put up the ratings, and he had Holding ranked higher than Mustafi, which I found myself to disagree with. I think Mustafi was bad, as I said, offensively in trying to ping those passes forward, but defensively, I thought Holding looked much more suspect. Yeah,
I don't know what it is. I think Granit's just the boo boy. I really do. He gets hammered every week in, week out. The haters are back on this week. They were on him last week, loved him to death, and this week they fucking hate him. So anyway, he'll continue to fuck yous all over. So get fucked.
Lovely.
Clockandtalk.blogspot.com. Schwinn, you've just reminded me. Who did the ratings again? Jake, wasn't it? So,
that's it.
So just a quick one. So obviously he's give Leno a 9, Bellerin a 6, Mustafi a 5.5, Holding a 6. Yeah, okay.
See, that's another one. Mustafi's ranked lower than Bellerin, which, again, I find a bit shocking.
Yeah. Kolasinac a 4.5, Torreira a 7, Granit a 5.5, Ozil a 1, Aubameyang 4, Iwobi a 6,
oh boy,
Lacazette a 5. So yeah, anyway, you can find them, and he gives these little bit of a spiel on why he's give them ratings. So clockandtalk.blogspot.com. Okay, boys, that's about it for the week or day. We are going to come back international break more than likely because we all get bored, even though we've all been quiet this week, and say let's do a podcast. So I think Tony had a couple of ideas too, didn't you, mate?
Positive, full of ideas, mate.
Bringing something to the table finally, Schwinn.
High fucking time, though.
It is, isn't it? Okay. Thank you.
Who needs enemies, eh?
Thank you for listening. Thank you for downloading. You'll follow us at clockend_talk on Twitter. We're on clockendtalk at Facebook. And YouTube, do not forget to subscribe to our YouTube and your chance to win a Arsenal shirt that we will draw as soon as we hit 500 followers. We will also retweet that out again. Okay, boys, thanks again, and we'll speak to you all and everybody else next week. Thanks, lads.
Cheers.
Bye.